Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. It's been a long time since I've made one of these videos, but I bought a new camera. Today I'm going to talk about what it is, why I bought it, and also go out and shoot with it. The new camera I bought is the Voigtlander Bessa T. Some of you who follow my work might know that I shoot medium format for pretty much all of my work, so I was actually very excited to go back to shooting a little bit more 35mm, and that's why I bought this camera. Okay, so the main feature of this camera and the main reason to buy it is the fact that it has a Leica M mount. So you can essentially use any Leica lens on this camera. It'll work perfectly with focusing, exposure, and in your photos you can take advantage of that really nice Leica glass that people love so much. It's really nice quality. The lenses just feel really nice to use. So to be able to use those high quality lenses on a much more affordable camera body like this was really appealing to me. I know that Leicas are very much about the experience and the build quality, and this definitely doesn't match that. This camera feels a lot cheaper, but at the same time it's also a lot lighter, and that was something that I was really interested in. You can pick one of these camera bodies up for about 1/6 of the price of an M6, which is pretty crazy to me, especially this one, which is just perfect condition. It looks like it's never been used until I touched it. This past weekend, I took a trip up to San Francisco with my girlfriend Allison, and we drove along Highway 1 pretty much the whole time. It's one of the most beautiful drives I've ever done, and I shot the whole way with just the Bessa T. One of our first stops was Morro Bay, which is home to some really beautiful beaches, and I also love the smokestacks here. So if you buy just the camera body, there is no way to see what your composition looks like. The only thing that's built into this camera is the rangefinder. So you essentially have this really small rangefinder that you look through, and that's what you use to focus the camera. It's a totally different experience. And then separately, you have to buy a viewfinder depending on the focal length of your lens. So this viewfinder is a 35mm viewfinder, which matches my 35mm lens. So this viewfinder situation to me has both some advantages and disadvantages, and let's talk about those really quick. I think the main disadvantage here is that basically for every lens that you own, you have to buy a separate viewfinder. If you change lenses, you also have to change the viewfinder. I think that's a problem if you're somebody who uses a lot of lenses. If you're somebody like me and you shoot with pretty much one lens all the time, I really don't see any downsides to it. And actually, I have learned to really love this kind of experience where the rangefinder is separate to the viewfinder. The main reason for that is that the rangefinder is really magnified, because that's all that it has to do. It just has to be for focusing the camera. So that means that your whole field of view when you look through this is essentially like a giant focusing patch. It makes it really easy to focus. This is really something that's going to be personal preference, and it's going to vary based on what you shoot. Another amazing thing about this separate viewfinder situation thing is that your viewfinder only has to show the frame lines for one lens. That means that these viewfinders that are external are super bright, and they're basically built for one focal length. So it's not like a multifunctional type of thing. It's one focal length that it kind of shows perfectly, and I really love that. if you ever get the chance to drive along Highway 1, I highly recommend it. There's so many beautiful spots to stop all along the highway, and we really took our time enjoying a lot of the scenery along the coast. One of my favorite stops along this trip was Big Sur. There's just so much beautiful nature to photograph, and we got lucky with some really pretty light. The final quirk, I guess, about this camera, and this is something I really don't like, is that the light meter on this thing is external. So you basically read the light by pointing your camera at the subject, and you have this little gauge on the back that tells you if you're over or underexposed, and you can basically adjust your settings based on that. I don't know if I love it. It's kind of weird to hold a camera like this and look at the back to look for the exposure, but it's also not the end of the world, I guess. With this camera, I bought a 35mm f2.5 lens, which I mainly bought because it was one of the more affordable Leica M-mount lenses. It's made by Voigtlander. It's really nice quality as far as I can tell, and the photos have all turned out super sharp, so no complaints there. And actually, because I've enjoyed using this camera so much, I find myself shooting a lot more just also in my day-to-day life. I'm not necessarily just carrying this camera out. When I'm going specifically to shoot, I carry this camera everywhere because it's so light and so fun to use. I didn't film too much in San Francisco, but it was really nice being back there. It's a city I love, and although I've had some unfortunate experiences there in the past, I love coming back here. Let me know what you thought down below. I'm curious to hear if any of you have used one of these Bessa T cameras. I want to say thank you so much for watching, and finally thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Squarespace is an incredible all-in-one website building platform that you can use to build your photography portfolio online. I've been using Squarespace for over 3 years at this point, and they've made it so incredibly easy to get a website up and running with my photography. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can hit the link in my description for a 14-day free trial of Squarespace. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Willem for 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. I'll see you next week with another video. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.